Welcome to another video episode of Tete-a-Tete, a regular series of interactions that Executive Access India has with top industry leaders, CEOs, and founders of organizations. I am Sandeep Gupta, Managing Partner at Executive Access, and I have with me Harsha Raghavan, who is the founder and Managing Partner at Convergent Finance. Great. Hey, Harsha, great to meet you.
Thank you, Sandeep. It's nice to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Lovely to have you. Harsha, so, you've had a very interesting journey, and of course, you've kind of gone through a few different avatars in your life. Maybe it'd be helpful for us to understand a little bit about, your journey to become the CEO of Convergent Finance. What were some of the key lessons and experiences that kind of shaped your leadership style as you landed up founding this and came to be?
No, thank you, Sandeep. That's a great question. And that goes to the core of, I'd say, the experiences I've had throughout my working career that have informed and influenced who I am today. I started my career here in India, in Bombay, in the private equity career industry back in 1996. It's been 28 years and I haven't found a second gig yet. And so in those days, I worked at a fund that was called Indocean Chase Capital. Mm-hmm. So Indocean Chase was one of the pioneers in the private equity industry at the time. The firm no longer exists, but I learned from some of the best. I had great mentors there. In 1997, we invested in a young bank, HDFC Bank. Through that, I got to meet the chairman of HDFC, Mr. Deepak Parekh. He has been one of the most amazing mentors to me. And later in my career, I had many more. Through these mentors, I think one fundamental principle, really has held me well through my learnings. And that is to always make sure you're working with good people. Mm. Integrity, competence, the right framework towards collaboration, partnership. These are concepts that I think are timeless. So that's, I'd say, where my career started from. Of course, there have been many mistakes and learnings, bruises and hard knocks taken along the way. After Indocean, I went to Goldman Sachs, worked with Goldman Sachs in private equity in the US and back here in India. I was fortunate enough to get elevated a little bit and was heading private equity here for India. Then Deepak Parekh introduced me to the chairman of a Canadian insurance investment company, a person called Prem Watsa. Again, one of those people I'd rank as being one of my mentors and somebody who I've really grown to respect. Yeah. Prem and I worked together at Fairfax, which I set up in 2010. That helped me build on my journey. Got to meet lots of other good people in the companies we invested in through Fairfax, which included, for example, Thomas Cook in India, Quest Corporation down in Bangalore, Bangalore Airport, which we acquired in 2015, Catholic Syrian Bank,
wonderful,
and some others, which again were instrumental in shaping who I am.
Wonderful. And you started Convergent Finance when then?
Well, in 2018, Prem was kind enough to support us. I have two partners, so the three of us set up Convergent Finance in 2018. We're 6 years into the journey, and we've got a long way to build.
Wonderful. Great story. Well, you've obviously had such a long career now in private equity. What are your views on the general, private equity landscape, both globally and in India? How do you feel it's kind of evolved? Where do you feel like, it's headed, particularly as it relates to India? We often hear a lot about, global LPs talking about, not that many private equity firms returning enough capital in dollar terms, etc. Do you feel there'll be a rationalization? Do you feel money is easy to come by? People kind of still, very happy with the long-term story in India. What are you seeing in terms of the overall landscape?
Super question. Just to put some perspective, globally, assets under management in the private equity industry today are about $5 trillion US, just a bit under. This is in the context of global stock market capitalizations being about 100 trillion.
Yeah.
So the publicly listed securities are valued at 100 trillion. The assets under management private equity, 5 trillion, 5%. Mm-hmm. In India, our stock market capitalization is 3 trillion. That's 3% of the global number for stock markets. Our private equity assets under management here in India has expanded quite a bit, but is still only a little over $60 billion, which is kind of 1% of the stock market capitalization. So I'd say a few things. Number one, at 3% of global stock market capitalization, India is underweight, and there's room for India's stock market capitalization to grow as India, which is already the 5th largest economy in the world, continues to expand. Within that, the global average is 3% of stock market capitalization being in private equity. We're at 1% here in India. So I'd say we have room for growth in that as well.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen in the years that I've been in the industry, I've seen our industry grow and mature quite a bit. And that's heartwarming. That's great. What we had when I joined in the 90s was barely 5 or 6 firms. All local homegrown firms, including the one I joined. A bit later, a couple of US firms came in. By 2003, I think we were only about 15 or maybe 20 firms max in the country. With perhaps 35, 40 professionals in the industry in India.
Very small.
5 years later, by 2008, I think there must have been 400 firms and 4,000 professionals.
Wow.
So we got up to a very slow start. And then in 5 years, from 2003 to 2008, we went from 40 people to 4,000 people.
Yeah, crazy.
2008 wasn't kind to us. We had nothing, no foreign Indians, Lehman and so on. Yet, India went into a bit of a slumber. The industry shrunk. Even today, 15 years later, 16 years later, we don't have 400 firms in the country. We probably have 35, 40, I think. And we don't have 4,000 professionals in the country. We have perhaps 500. These are all gut feel estimates. But the net result, both in terms of assets under management, share in the universe globally and locally, and in terms of the professionals in the industry, I think India's got a long way of a lot of upside.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I did not know that. I did not know we had so many firms and it's actually shrunk down to this much.
Yes.
Incredible. Interesting.
Great. It does go to your question, Sandeep, by the way, about India having shown performance. Because of course, if India had shown performance 15, 16 years ago, then the number of firms would not have shrunk.
Correct. True.
So we've had a period of time, and more important than Lehman in 2008 was UPA2 that entered office in 2009. The second term of Congress, 2009 to 14, doesn't, in retrospect, appear to have been such a great period for India and for Indian business. So a lot of what happened post-Lehman is that the world went into a cold freeze and recovered quickly. India went into a cold freeze that was almost like an ice age.
True.
For a period of time.
True.
That's partly why the firms could not show performance. But since 2014, with a number of the initiatives that the government has undertaken since then, notably, I must say, a few of the sort of watershed events, such as the introduction of the goods and services tax, the entire move towards electronic banking. People talk about demonetization. I would go much broader, and I would talk about the move towards banking and embracing banking. We now have 3 billion bank accounts in the country, which is basically 2 per person, including the kids. All of that, UPI and NPCI as a result, has reduced frictions from our economic activity.
Absolutely. I fully agree with you. I mean, well, great. And, coming to sort of the talent side, look, one is always, private equity jobs are great. You look at it, you see a lot of people, young kids basically getting out of, IIMs and, other schools, business schools, etc., all vying for private equity jobs, right? How do you sort of feel that, talent pool is evolving, and what do you all specifically look for, when you all think about, hiring at Convergent?
Every firm, rightly so, every firm has its own different approach towards organizational construct. We at Convergent have tended to hire at the junior most level and then nurture people, train them, and promote them up within the team. We don't tend to hire very often at senior levels, once in a while, but by and large, less so. And at the junior most level, what are we looking for?
Yeah.
We're looking for essentially culture, because we're going to train them anyways. And in culture, what are we looking for? We're looking for people who have the convergent principles: teamwork, collaboration, integrity, the humility to learn, and the deep desire to help the firm perform and, of course, flourish within as individuals. With that, what we hope to provide is a platform, sort of open architecture for people to come in, learn, show results, and improve for the benefit of the firm and for themselves.
Interesting. So, when we sort of see a lot of talent acquisition, and we talk to a lot of sort of CEOs, etc., I think, we hear a couple of things from folks, talent is just becoming very expensive. Okay. Good talent is becoming very expensive. B, some of the Gen Z stuff, is now focusing a lot more on kind of work-life balance, versus, just pure pay, and sort of a career. Have you encountered any of those challenges in terms of hiring? Has it relatively been pretty smooth? Have the people worked out for you, in terms of the hiring? Have you been able to assimilate them into the cultural ethos that you've created at Convergent? What are your views on that?
It's a great question, Sandeep, and goes to the core of, I think, what is Convergent. In the last 6 years, we've gone from the 3 of us founding partners. Today, we're a team of almost 25 people. We've had, I'd say, great working and long working relationships with everyone. The 3 partners, we've worked together for about 15 years at Fairfax and Convergent. We have 3 vice presidents today. They've worked with us. 2 of the 3 have worked with us for 5 years plus. And then at the analyst and associate level, we've had longevity as well, to the extent that people have joined us out of their first job, and 2 or 3 or 4 years later as they go.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's I'd say been our experience. And I'd say, as a more general statement, everyone is looking for stability. Okay, there are rare people who are looking for instability. Most people are looking for stability. And once they get stability, they then look for a couple of things. Number one, they want to be adequately compensated, without a doubt. Number 2, they're looking to do interesting work. They don't want to be doing the same thing over and over again, and that being monotonous. And so they want to be treated well, both financially and intellectually stimulated and professionally. I'd say any firm that is able to achieve those will find that retention is not a problem.
Interesting. That's an interesting perspective. Also, we saw, going back to your point about kind of 2008, 2010, that whole period, we saw a lot of sort of, there was a lot of demand for, overseas talent, people who'd kind of gone abroad, come back and, worked, overseas. We hear now, that recently when we talk to sort of, CEOs or even hiring managers, right, they speak a lot of kind of, we care much more about local talent, local knowledge, right? India's kind of become a market unto itself. It's got, a lot of idiosyncrasies that, people overseas don't have experience around. If you were sort of, given a choice between hiring people with overseas talent versus local talent, do you have any preferences there? Any thoughts? Does it make a difference? What do you think?
There is a pendulum. And in recent times, in our working careers, the pendulum has swung towards US centricity with respect to US politics, US corporations, and US educations having been perceived reasonably widely as being the gold standards. That pendulum, in my view, has been changing over the last, let's say, decade. And the pendulum is continuing to swing away from US centricity, We're
agree.
living today in a somewhat polarized world, and India has actually presented itself fairly well in, I'd say, what has been otherwise difficult waters to navigate globally.
Yeah.
As that pendulum switch changes away from US centricity, I'd say there is an increasing element of Indian centricity as a part of the mix. So, with that, the US multinational may no longer be the only necessary path. The next GE or the next Microsoft may emerge from India or from other places.
Yeah.
One anecdote on that. An entrepreneur here in India went and bought a company and is now taking it global. That company is called the British East India Company. And so that is now owned by an Indian.
Interesting.
Who is now taking it offshore.
Interesting. There we go. There's no better example of globalization for India, right? Excellent. Great. Well, fantastic. This has been great. Before I sign off, let me ask you, what do you do for work-life balance, Harsha?
I come to work.
Yeah.
Work-life balance, I think, is important. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so on any given day, week, month, or year, one needs to make sure that one is sort of living a well-rounded life. And so with that comes health, wellness, hobbies, family, and of course work as well.
Yeah.
Intellectual stimulation is part of that.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their own preferences on those things. For me, I find that every day is like Buffett has said before, every day you want to tap dance your way to work.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, great. I wish you all the best for your future success at Convergent, and thank you so much for this time and interview with us.
Sandeep, it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.